Hey, hey, welcome to another episode. I am Dagny.
I'm Damali.
And in this episode, we want to discuss, reflect, analyze, and hopefully find some solutions on the continued gap or perceived gap between education and employment, or training and jobs, careers,
Yes.
trajectory. And in this, we want to touch on this notion of whether business or organizations or school curriculums, which one of them or are both of them responsible for the gap that has continued to happen where you have people who graduate or are in school and find a challenge when it comes to either completely finding a job or being placed in the right job. Or also there are challenges where employers are having difficulty training people or having difficulty finding the right skill set that they're looking for, even though on paper it seems like the potential candidate should be able to do whatever they want them to do, when in actuality, the education curriculum did not give you that. So that's the galaxy we're in during this episode. So to start, we're going to first start with, maybe this will be like the bigger scope and then we'll narrow it as we continue. So the bigger scope when we're speaking to the trying to close this gap between education and careers. And right now we're seeing a attempt at a connection between tech and the arts when it comes to industry. Everyone wants to try and get into tech of some kind. At this moment in time, it seems to be the industry that is booming. It's not the only one, but at least that's the one that gets the most, possibly a lot of the most publicity when it comes to the evolutions and developments that are happening. And since they also are the ones that are, I think the industry is more capable to hold space for remote working and different levels of education. So it seems like it should be more accessible to more people who want a job. But the gap is still gapping in that. Yes. So I'm going
to
throw it back to you, Damali, because I think this segues into the overall issue when it comes to this skills and education gap that we're still in.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for throwing it to me, and I have caught it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it seems that we have all these like degrees, but they don't necessarily prepare the student for the job afterward. And so you have people where you have the degree, you have the paper, but then let's say you don't have a job, or you don't have the job that you would like to have. And I think part of the issue is that schooling is the way that schools are is very kind of traditional in how they teach. And it seems that it's almost that the job market has it's grown a lot in a way that maybe the way that we're being taught has not grown. And also there are a lot of jobs that we didn't have before and now we do. So it's almost like, oh, the school is teaching you that for this job, and then there's some new job that we've never heard of before. And then the school is like, well, we're still doing the same stuff that we did 10 years ago. So, you're just get the degree and then it'll help you. And it's like, but I'm not prepared at all kind of thing. So what am I supposed to do? Right. And then also, which is sad because there are jobs available. There are, but it's like if we have a school situation where it doesn't let us know about that, or we're not able to know of it, then it won't work, right? And particularly in the jobs that they really want, or like you said, the technology in the STEM field and the skills trade. And skills trade is it's in manufacturing, I guess manufacturing, construction, things like that, where let's say you're working on a certain machine part or something like that, and you need to learn how to do it. For that, I mean, yes, you have to go to school for that, but you also, that's what they have these I think they're vocational schools where you're going to that school and you're learning a certain skill or how to build something, and then that is your job, right? And apparently there's not even though like there's there's a lot of labor work in, well, so I guess I'll say specifically for America because that's, my reference. But like, like they would have, there's slots they have that are open and they need someone to fill that slot. But there's no student that can fill it because they weren't taught that kind of thing. And the job is like, well, we have availability for these students, but there's no like connection. It's almost like the job industry and the university are not like, they're not talking enough, I guess, because it's like, we have a job, but the student doesn't know. And then the education people are like, well, we gave them their degree and we're done with them. So they have to go in the job industry and figure that out, kind of thing. So we thought it was kind of interesting how, like, I mean, I know for me, many, many years ago, I thought that the moment you get a college degree, automatically you have a job. Like you just, I have a degree. So obviously, boom. And they're always like, well, you need a degree to do this. And then now it seems that not necessarily. And a lot of people like have the degree, but either they don't have either the jobs are few and far between, or they don't have a job for a while, or they settled for a job that they didn't think they would do, or a job that doesn't really connect with their degree, or it's not a job that they really want, but they're just doing it because, well, I don't know, and the person could have like 10 degrees, right? And they have the knowledge and they're smart and all this stuff, but the job is not there because they didn't have the connection is not there. So that's what I'll first start off about that.
All right. So let's take that a little deeper in terms of some of the points you brought up, because when we talk about the education system and looking to whether what the curriculum has done, I think it is a good point to take note that education in general, that curriculum tends to be the last thing to evolve out of everything else. And so we've been having an interesting situation where industries have developed and the curriculum is 30 years behind, kind of thing. I do recall for me, especially when I was doing, I would say, let's say journalism. I was going to say international affairs, but I think as an easier example, I would say journalism, where the curriculum was very much based on, this is for the newspaper. You should only be trying to get into a printed newspaper or a local radio station or a local TV station. And this was at a time where technology had developed, where YouTube is picking up, Vimeo is picking up, Twitter is picking up, and news is starting to be funneled in a completely different way. And the education curriculum was really clinging to, no, this old paradigm is the gatekeeper of all gates. And that's all you need to know. And that's it. And so and I think this has continued in every industry, whether it's other of the sciences or the arts and things like that, where it's a bit frustrating because as a student, if you're a student at that time, you are very aware of what's happening outside of the classroom. You can see that like, wow, all this other stuff is happening and this institution is not really giving me the skills for that. At least on the outset, it seems that way, which is why the question I would ask about what is the purpose of education. And when we say education, again, it doesn't mean it's required to get the degree, but that is part of the conversation because and a lot of these jobs will list, you need at least one degree to even be eligible to apply. Yes. So and this also will connect to some of our reflections on this debate when we have generations coming up who are wondering or questioning whether getting their first degree is even worth it to them due to what they are seeing about what's happening before them. And I think the question then is like the purpose of education, is it for knowledge or is it for the workforce? Yes. And I think that's where we sometimes can maybe trip up on our own selves, because if you are looking at it, focusing on this is for knowledge, I think then you do get to take out a whole lot out of the experience, regardless if it's a 4-year degree, a 2-year degree, a vocational degree, a certificate, whatever combination it is for you to get a piece of paper with your name written on it in cursive at the end of that program, right? Your brain is different compared to when you started to when you completed the program. So that I think shows that no, there was value to that. The key, though, is like you noted, the lack of a connection is like you picked up all these wonderful puzzle pieces, or you picked up all these wonderful tools, which is the knowledge, right? But then the key connector to how did those tools translate into skills that translate into the deliverables that your employer wants. And that is where, like, whether or not education is for knowledge or workforce changes, because the personnel on these campuses or in these programs are primarily only focused on, did you memorize the facts? Did you memorize the data? Can you write the essay? Can you take the exam? Can you do the formula? Can you do the equation? Can you do the presentation? None of them are counseling you or training you for, this is what your employer needs from you. This is what it means when your employer is asking, this is that, the other. This is how you deliver that, or this is how you should connect the dots with it. Which then leads to, whose responsibility is that? Mm-hmm. Is it the student just to figure it out? Even though as a student, you're doing your exams, and the only thing afterwards that people are talking about jobs is to make sure your LinkedIn page is correct, make sure your CV is a certain way, make sure you dress this way for the interview, ask these particular questions, cold email, cold call, cold eat, whatever, to get into the door, right? But in terms of how do you actually be a positive, influential contributor to the workforce?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we actually have a class on that if you're going through the regular education curriculum. And I think that's possibly where the disconnect is for at least the generations right now who are dealing with either, if you are at entry-level mode or you're at mid-level mode, feeling like you need to move on or shift into or upgrade into something else. This also reminds me of a meme to note how education has changed. It also reminds me of a meme. I forget, Damali sent this or somebody else, where it showed like mathematical equations and how, like, a long time ago, the mathematical equation would be, the question is to find the circumference of the equation of the, it's like a long paragraph, right? Then 20 years later, okay, just find the circumference or just find the circumference, or just find X times Y. Then 20 years later, just find the length. Then 20 years later, just tell us what shape do you see in the picture. Don't even calculate the length times width. Just tell us what it is. And then now tell us, what do you think the shape identifies as? What is the pronoun for this shape? So even though it's funny, tongue in cheek, I guess, if you put your tongue to your cheek when something's funny. I never understood that phrase, to be honest. I'm just saying. But to take note that I feel like it's funny that even though it seems like education is the last to evolve, if you look at education of like how we've been testing or training students over the last 100 years, let's say, one can take note that it just seems like, comparing to what kind of equations or knowledge or data students were expected to know and understand and get, is very different from right now, very different from the time when we were kids. And possibly, I don't want to say necessarily easier, because I think that takes away from the work and the discipline that the most recent generations have been doing too. Yes. But in terms of setting you up to be able to be a viable part of the so-called workforce after you graduate, it's possible there's a connection there in terms of why did the curriculum change in a way to become, what's the word? Is it soft, more diluted? Mm-hmm. Just keep on like removing stuff, removing departments, paying teachers less and less, and setting up schools, especially in the public school system, at least in the US, where it's much more of like a tax collecting business, as opposed to a space that really is supposed to be focused on your population being literate and correct and being able to solve problems and be like a proactive, good citizen in your place. And it's possible that might be why that is like catching up with us now with this gap, because the deal of unemployment among youth is something that's been for a while. But right now, I don't know if it's just because the youth are now being able to be more vocal about it, as opposed to before, when it's like, which newspaper is going to ask this 20-something-year-old why they're unemployed, while now they can go on TikTok and tell you why they're unemployed. And I think that to segue that into the most two recent, semi-recent things that I think also have affected or influenced the generations right now that are dealing with this. And these two are more of like a US based reference, but you listening, if the US based reference does not apply to you, this might be something that you can definitely look at or think of in terms of your own education system where you are and how that's influenced your population. So in the US, we have something called No Child Left Behind. And it was a policy that President Bush put into play during our lifetime. And the concept of that was regardless of, let me put it this way. The concept was no child should repeat a grade. Because the issue, apparently, allegedly, supposedly, they didn't ask me this because I was a kid at that time, but the issue was you have children being so-called left behind because they keep on repeating grade 4 because they're not doing the reading at that level. They're not something at that level. They're not passing. So they keep on just repeating the grade. But unfortunately, they repeat the grade, but nothing is really happening to really help the kid to get to the next level. We're just going to leave them floating, repeating the grade. And so you'll have grade 4 is what age? Like 10 years old, maybe, I think. So if you have everyone else is 10 years old, while this kid is 15 because they keep on repeating the grade. And so this issue was happening where you're having kids kind of like you've aged out already and like you're not getting the education that you need. So the concept was even if you didn't pass, you still will go on to grade 5 and go on to grade 6 and go on to grade 7. Yeah. The issue though, as always, was that a whole lot of kids, unfortunately, were falling through the cracks with this policy because that's fine to insist, okay, that it doesn't matter if you can't read grade 4 level, we're still going to bump you up to grade 5. Yeah. But unfortunately, we still did not really focus on this kid's reading level. There's a challenge here. We need to actually focus and give them more to do that. Instead, it was like, okay, just sign it, pass it on. Sign it, pass it on. So unfortunately, kids became, I'm just passing it on to the next teacher. You deal with it. Pass it on to the following teacher. You deal with it. And the teachers already are not getting paid enough and they're stressed out. So are they dealing with it? No. So these kids then end up graduating. They have the high school diploma, but their reading level is grade 4, even though they're 18, 19 years old. Their mathematics level is below that too. And so when they go to take, if they did, go to take the SAT, go take these sorts of exams to try and get into college, and it's not happening. Yes? And so in the US, we do have, you would listen to, there's quite a lot of conversations now happening with educators taking note that they can see now generationally that No Child Left Behind policy, unfortunately, has caused a deficit in the population. I'm not sure how that will play out statistically. Right now, it's just now they're starting to get the data because now the generations that were involved in that are now young adults. And taking note that you have a bigger proportion of young adults, their reading level is not at their age or their mathematics level, the problem solving, all of that. It's not that they have a development. It's not a learning challenge. It's just that they were a child that was not left behind. But technically that meant they will fall through the cracks and not really get taught the skills that they need. And so then you will see that play out in the workforce, where if someone who's an adult never got the problem solving skills, similar to how if you are a teacher and you have a kid who doesn't do their homework, and if you ask them, okay, why don't you do the homework? And they start throwing a tantrum, and then you never get the homework because now you're focused on, okay, now I need to calm down the kid because they're throwing a tantrum. No, let me put them in the corner. And then I'll go with something else. And now you never get the homework and you never figured out why they don't have the homework. Either because maybe they couldn't, the reading actually is beyond them, but they don't feel safe or comfortable or whatever to say that to you as a teacher. That comes out as an adult too, right? Because they never got past that. So when you're asking them, hey, that report we had, that PowerPoint on Friday, did you get it? And then they're throwing a tantrum in the cubicle. And you're like, whoa, what happened? Where's that coming from? These sorts of things are playing out. And not to say that the person who's now a young adult, well, that's your responsibility. Go and read a book or something. Yes, of course. They should definitely go pick up and read a book. Yes, it's their responsibility. They're adults now. But we need to take note of this, of like when people of authority put in these sorts of policies, the trickle down effect of that, I feel like we have to take responsibility for that too. It's not enough to be like, well, that's what the president did, so that ain't my business. It's like, well, no, it is, because we all have to deal with everybody else interacting with people who may have that, unfortunately, fell through the cracks, which again is an extra burden for teachers who are not even getting paid enough because they don't even have the resources to deal with. You have somebody in grade 8, but they are lagging behind because their reading is grade 6, but you can't only focus on them because you have 30 other kids in the classroom. All of that into play, that shows you this curriculum has yet to evolve if we think the classroom setup like that is okay. Another recent thing that also generationally it may take a while to see, or possibly already seeing, is COVID. That in some parts of the world, the shutdown took almost 2 years, and that really had a big influence on people who were in school, in particular in grade school. Some parts of the world, y'all were only closed for like 2 weeks and then you went back to normal. And that's great. Cool. I'm just saying here in Ghana, it was 2 weeks. So, but in other parts, of the world, schooling or trying to continue schooling was really difficult. And I'm not sure if that gap has been closed yet.
Yeah.
Even 4 years later, because I know it was like, well, everyone, you have to just do decisions immediately because the world was supposed to end at that time. But unfortunately, it went into the mode of like, okay, we're shutting down. Let's go virtual, even though your system is set up in a way where not all kids have access to even the internet to get the virtual stuff. As well as now kids are back at home and some of them are in an abusive home. So they're not even going to get the work done because they have to stay at home. Yes. But then the curriculum never upgraded during this time. So taking what you do in the classroom and just claim I'm going to copy and paste it online and you go do it doesn't help. So there was a gap where a lot of people are kind of just coasting through the semester without really learning much either, and never got that back 2 years later when campus was open, or 3 years later when school is back open. It's like we're going to pretend as if we're back to normal. We're just going to, pick up where we left off, when that's not the case. The gaps are still very much there, almost giving a little bit of a No Child Left Behind vibe, even though it wasn't a full policy, because it was just like, this is just a policy for safety. We'll figure it out later. And then we just never figured it out, hoping everyone forget that it was never figured out. Yes. So those things, at least on the US reference, those two things are causing a bit of a setback and difficulties when it comes to education. And now we're seeing data on generationally, this is causing ripple effects, which, of course, as these generations get into the workforce, will show. And then the question is, so whose responsibility is that? Now, do the employers need to teach them what was missing? Is that their job? Not really, even though I do feel like jobs really should have more real training in their stuff.
The training.
I'm just saying, this idea of like, I'm not going to teach you anything. You should just get it. It's like, okay, thanks. So I think that to at least take note of whether or not education is for knowledge of the workforce and how it's evolved. I think there is a dynamic between those two things that are important to always remember or be mindful of when we're speaking on this in terms of how much is the education curriculum responsible for this gap that's happening with finding employment. So before we go on to like the actual job stuff. Let me stop talking and then we can go on.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's been a lot of gaps, and I think each time we have some kind of intense, situation that happens or trauma that happens, it makes it more obvious. Like you said, like the COVID thing really showed the gaps, because now it's not a simple thing where, oh well, we can figure out what they're doing at school, and it's like, no, they're not at school anymore, they're at home and online, and like if they're having problems with work or something online, how do you deal with that, right? And then also a lot of times you like, and of course that would burn, and a lot of teachers are burnt out because like they don't, yes, they can teach, but like teaching online is a different beast than doing it in the classroom. So you have to completely change your whole lesson plan. You have to completely like do all these different things, and you have all this stuff, and like and everyone's I guess opinion shift, because people the teachers do get a lot of in trouble if the students are not doing that well, right? And they get a lot of flack for that. And the online thing shows that, yeah, like this is like really hard, and like it takes a lot. And then with the No Child Left Behind also, it's kind of like it's like we just want them to pass, but like and it's like we figure out the easiest way to get them to pass, but sometimes that doesn't solve the actual problem, right? You're just kind of like going along with it, even though it's not, as a metaphor, it's kind of like putting like a cake in an oven, and it's not done being cooked yet, but you have to give it to people. So you just give it to them, and everybody gets sick and they die. I'm just kidding. But like all dramatic.
That's a great metaphor. Yes.
You know what I mean? Yes. They throw up everywhere. Perfect. Okay, they have diarrhea, whatever. But anyway, food poisoning. Yeah. So it's like doing that where it's not finished yet. You need to keep it in the oven, right? And now with COVID, it's like, should everyone that went through COVID's online stuff, should they repeat a year? Should they go back and learn everything again in real time? But I don't know. We can't all do that collectively, and people have to move on, right? And so now it's kind of like playing catch up with the gaps, right? I mean, all I can say is I'm happy that, I mean, not happy, but like when COVID happened, I was done with school. Like I've been done with school. So so the effect of it on me was not as intense because I wasn't in school, right? But I know of people like, family that like was really affected by it. And like, I don't know if we were acting like, oh, it's fine now, everything's great, go back to normal. But like, I'm like, how do we deal with a lost year, right? And then of course, with because of COVID also, we were doing more social media stuff, obviously. So I think we probably heard even more about issues of education and things like that, and how people are like affected by it. And it's kind of like we all know there's an issue with it, but we haven't fully figured it out yet. And then of course, like with most things, sometimes the person who cares the most is not the one that gets to change stuff. Like a lot of times teachers know what to do and change, but they're not the ones that make the rules, right? It's like lobbyists or it's other business people, I think, who are not teachers that make the rules about the whole district. And so a lot of times, like, I of course have teacher friends, and they're kind of like, it's like you want to do stuff, but you can't because of your principal or because of someone higher or someone, you know what I mean? Like the higher you go, they're the ones that make the rules. And so the teacher's like, well, we should probably get more of this. We should probably do this. Hey guys, let's do this. And then it doesn't happen, right? And so, and of course, the one who suffers the most, obviously, is the student, right? Because they're the one that's supposed to be learning all this stuff. And I think that's a gap across all different like schools and things like that. And so if you already have gaps in the knowledge part, then of course you're going to have gaps in the job part, right? Because we haven't even figured out the education part, right? And so it almost makes you wonder if we should do a thing where, I mean, there are schools like that where it's like you teach for the job. Like it's like you just get the education for the job that you want, and that's it, right? But I feel like it should be sandwiched together. There should be the knowledge part, but also the job part, where these are, here's the knowledge for you and you can use it as you like, and here's the job that you like and you use it as you like, kind of thing. And then of course to add a layer to that is, I'm sure maybe people have gone through this, where you have a job and it's obvious that your boss is not like, or your manager is not qualified enough for it, or you have a job and the person who's your boss kind of knows less than you do, you know what I mean? So you're working under someone who's not qualified, and you kind of don't know, and you're kind of wondering, I don't know if everyone's been these, but like where you wonder why is my manager my manager? Like you're like, well, how did you get this job? Like why are you, kind of thing. And I've heard many jokes about this, about how managers are and how like they're just there just to like make noise and then not really help anything, some of them. I mean, I've had a mixture. I've had some good bosses and some that I was like, I'm pretty sure I could probably do it better anyway. But the point is, that's another layer of the education thing where it's like, what's the point? People are like, what's the point of getting all this education if my boss knows less than I do? So then what's the reason, right? And I mean, obviously people say, okay, just own your own business, but not everyone can do that, right? But it's just it's like you see these cracks and gaps everywhere, and like even once you get the job, and once you still see gaps, right? And then obviously as you stay in the job, if you do it for a few years, or if you figure it out, you deal with it. But it's like I feel like there's a lot of obstacles that maybe we wouldn't have if we knew more about the job situation before we got into it, right? Because like for me, a lot of things that I learned were when I had the job. When I had jobs, I'd be like, oh, that's how you do that. It would have been nice to learn that before. It's like, and it's kind of like for school, I remember learning about, oh, your resume, and here's career services, and here's a counselor. But like, there are still things when I actually had a job where I was like, I didn't learn this in school, like kind of thing. And then of course, there's always the thing about internships, right? Where the unpaid versus paid internships, and like, is it enough or not? And then the whole joke where it's like, you don't have any experience because you just got out of college, but they're like, but you need 1 year experience. And it's like, how do I get 1 year experience if I don't have any? Like, that kind of usual thing. And then it's just, and then it's funny because I mean, there are the jobs like Dagny was saying, the technology is STEM, right? STEM, which is like, science, tech, right? Engineering, math. Those are high in demand. Like those tech type jobs, skilled trade jobs, those jobs are really in demand. So you're like, if they're in high demand and they have so many slots, why are they not being filled, right? So there's this whole huge gap. And like, I'm not really sure how we can I guess the job industry and the education industry have to really talk to each other and figure out what exactly are we doing here, and like maybe it's like we need certain knowledge for, like there should be two categories: the knowledge and being able to critically think about stuff. Because I know a lot of times like there's things we learn in college, and we're like, people are like, I never use Pythagorean theorem. Kind of thing, like, what is that? I never use pi. Like, what is that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, all these things you never have to do. But that's not the point. The point is not to use it. It's to be able to like do stuff with your brain. It's to make you think. It's not about like, oh, I never use, and it's like, but I think actually like, I feel like there's stuff that you do use, you just don't realize it. I think you just don't realize it. But the point is like, there should be a level of your learning just for the sake of learning. It's just to be able to think and be able to talk and have coherent conversations without sounding like an idiot. Like, you know what I mean? Like being able to say stuff, and, like even simple things like reading a book that you had assigned, let's say, like some of the classics, I don't know. And like, maybe whether you like reading or not, if you read that book in class and someone else reads that book, oh my God, there you go. Conversation. Oh, do you remember that book? Oh yeah, kind of thing. And it gives you something to talk about. Right. But I think, there needs to be both parts, like the part of critical thinking, just learning how to think, knowledge, and then what I'm going to do with this knowledge, and then how do I get a job afterward, and how can I connect to the jobs that will have me, so that right after college, I mean, unless you're going to do another degree or do something else or take a gap year, but when I'm ready and I need a job, it's there, as opposed to people like scrambling because they don't really know, or you end up getting a job that like you get the job because entry level for experience, but it's not really what you want to do or what you thought that you would do, kind of thing. And that is a problem, because like, how do we, like you were saying, excuse me, the thing about who's responsible then, who takes accountability? Is it just us? I mean, for the most part, yeah. Like I know for me, a lot of the job stuff, like a lot of it, you kind of had to figure it out on your own, kind of thing, and you just kind of deal with it. Like, or if there are situations where you had issues in there are certain office politics, and like it's like I didn't fully figure it out until later, like after the job was done. Then I was like, oh, that's what that was. Oh, that's how I deal with it. And then you just kind of, whatever you learn from that job, you just take in the next job. You're like, okay, well, I know this didn't work last time, so now we'll do this differently, kind of thing. But it's like, is there a way to learn that before, or is there a way to have skills to be able? No, I mean, obviously, there are things that you can only learn them when you're in them. Like you can't learn every single thing about a job until you have a job, right? But I do think it kind of, because even like for interns, like I had internships, but they also didn't fully like. It's like I don't know what we can do to make it better for you to fully be more prepared for the job that you're going to have. and be able to fill a slot that they need, because it seems there's all these gaps and emptiness everywhere within the industry, and it's like we know that there's emptiness, but we don't know we can't figure out how to like fill it, kind of thing, and fill the actual gap and we're not fixing the actual problem. We're just kind of like, that saying where like it's poop and you shine the poop, but it's
Wow.
still poop.
Oh, okay. I mean, if you want to go
That's the
there, you
metaphor
could
we're
go
going with.
there.
Okay. The point is you can't polish dirty things. You have to fix them, right? And I'm not sure. And it's we can't be like, oh, well, the president is the one that did this, not me. I'm like, okay, but like we're still dealing with it. So, and yes, I understand the No Child Left Behind. I get it. You want them to pass. You want them to get the paper, because if they fall and they don't get to finish school at all, or they drop out after 5th grade, that's a problem, obviously. But there needs to be a different way to push them along. And then there's the extra layer of teach to the test, which also was a thing. Remember, where it's like you're just teaching the student for the test. Like that's it. Like we're not
the standardized test.
It doesn't the standardized test where it's not so much you have to critically think or you have to soak things in your brain. It's just memorization and learning like strategies to solve a test problem, right? And I'm like, okay, but there's more to education than just, let me just get a test. And we all know there are people that can take tests without having to do much of anything, right? Like you can be good at a test and not be like overly smart. Like some people don't have to be a genius to be able to do well on tests, Not to say that's an issue. If you're good at tests, that's awesome. If you're good at studying for them, great. But I just think that that's only a very small part of the value or of education. And then also if you go back to like what you said about whether it's worth it or not, like what's the point of a college degree? I don't use it. I'm not doing it and all this stuff. The point is just to get the degree. Okay, be quiet. I'm just kidding. I mean, if you don't have to, some people don't have to. Like some people are able. I mean, look at who is the Zuckerberg person, right? He didn't finish school, right? And Bill Gates, did they finish?
Careful.
Yeah, let me be careful. Let me be careful. Is Zuckerberg or Bill Gates? Who's the one that didn't finish school? I don't remember.
Was in college when he stole Facebook from those
but did he get the degree though? Did he graduate? Anyway, never mind. Okay, let's not name drop.
We need to check the information.
No, we need to check. No, it was Bill Gates. Who was the one that didn't finish college? I don't remember. But they still went to college, though. They just,
Wait,
did Zuckerberg graduate?
No, he got an honorary degree.
He did not graduate, but he went to Harvard, but he did not.
He didn't, but he didn't. He dropped out, and then they gave him an honorary degree afterwards because
See, I was right.
Can't ignore him. And then we know
Bill
Jobs
Gates
also dropped out.
Steve Jobs,
right? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, and the same. Yeah. Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, they're all dropped out, right? They're all college dropouts, right? And normally that doesn't sound too good. We got to take note,
but you also need to take note.
Yes.
That even though you're going to use these 3 white men as an example.
I know.
Okay, Damali. Let's keep it real. Let's keep it 100.
No, but you get what I'm getting there. I'm getting
these 3
not
men.
Everyone can do that.
No. These 3 white men who live in a country that favors their demographic dropped out of college and became some mega tycoons. We must note, though, that their trajectory is not all of our trajectories in terms of everybody dropping out of college and you can just pick up something.
Yeah, not like everybody drops out and you'll become Bill Gates. No, like that's not the point. Like some people, yes, they can do it. But for the most part, if you're not Bill Gates, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. But like it's still good to have. Like, and I know there's arguments about which degree is better. Like, like there's always like English degrees are useless, whatever, or like you should only have an engineering degree. Even though I've heard engineering people also don't have jobs, some also, but it's how the whole thing about which degree is better. At the end of the day, it's just about the degree, whether it's this or that, whatever degree. The fact that you have it, it's a it's almost like a non-speaking point. Like if you have a degree, no one's really talking about it, right? I think it's only a type of discussion if you don't have the degree. Then it's like, oh, okay. Like especially if you're trying to get a job that requires a degree. And if you don't have it, then it becomes obviously an issue because you need a degree to, and I just think it could be a barrier. And I think I heard a story of a guy too, who like he worked at some place for years, for decades or something, but he didn't have a degree. And then someone with a degree was able to like get a higher position than him or something like that.
Yes.
And so I think let me finish my point, but it's kind of like the value of it is still in there, and also regardless of whether economies are thriving or not, it seems people are still want to get degrees, and as years go by, people more and more are getting university degrees and see that value of it. But what were you going to say?
So then that is a good segue in terms of the conversation about the workforce and the generations coming up and already who are looking for jobs or about to graduate, and those who have either been in the workforce for a few years and feel some kind of way. So to start that, there's this tweet, because real philosophy sometimes happens on Twitter or Reddit, okay? And so I wanted to share this because I think it ties into what we're speaking to. So this is one particular post and then a response that I'm going to read you. So the first post says, "Every smart person I know is failing. My brother, who was the valedictorian of our high school, is unemployed. My best friend, who skipped grades and went to MIT for math, is a beach bum now in Florida working at a bar. I've personally made enough money to quit society if I move to a cheap college town, and I'm seriously considering it. I do not see the point in working, and I'm totally burnt out. Meanwhile, the most mid people I have met throughout my life are rising to director positions at companies, going on crazy vacations, becoming influencers, having families. Truly, every real bright person I know who studies something serious at a good school is now unemployed and working on an esoteric passion project no one will ever care about. Has it always been this way, or is our society especially cooked right now?" And the response that I thought stood out was this that I'm going to read now. "Because being smart or talented does not translate into having a job in America at all. The most talented and hardworking people are continuously kept in lower positions at near every company. Ever heard the phrase, 'you're too valuable at your current position'? That means replaceable person gets the promotion. This happens over and over until the person barely able to do the grunt work is a middle manager, and the entire building is operating off the productivity of 2 or 3 competent people doing 4 jobs at once. One of them quits and the business falls apart. But the real kicker is the middle manager who has 0 skills, now has management experience, and can trade up when they get a new job. The competent worker passed up only has entry-level experience and has to get another entry-level job. Compound this across 30 years and nationwide with things like cronyism and offshoring labor, and the competency crisis starts making a bit more sense." So that's opening up this next section of our conversation. Snaps. Now, I've noted, right? And I'm not sure if we're going to put it in generational categories, millennials, Gen Z, who's after Gen Z, the alphas, all right? These are the 3 generations right now that I think have been speaking a lot or being a bit more vocal about the job force, the workforce, because we are the ones who are flipping tables, flipping feathers, flipping the script.
Okay.
When it comes to how we are navigating the workforce, how we're navigating jobs, whether we bounce from company to company or not, what types of hours we prefer, what types of payments we prefer. And the conversations that I've been seeing when it comes to the question of whether or not, like you noted, whether or not having a degree or going further in education is important or even worth it. If, like this post noted, if those before them who did take their degree seriously are working on the beach in a bar somewhere, or, just seem to not be doing the traditional route of what that so-called the 5 degrees behind their name was supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm going to note this in 2, I think there's I'm going to note 2 layers with this. First, when it comes to education, I would say for me, my perspective on education, one, yes, we come from a home that values education very much. Yeah. Another major influence for me was that as a kid, I did do some school. I was put into a Montessori school for some years. And the curriculum there is quite different from regular school, because after that, I was in public school for the rest of my time. Mm-hmm. But what I appreciated as a kid was that their curriculum at that time gave the kid autonomy for their learning, as in really trained the kid to understand that your knowledge is not a chore. you actually seek it for yourself and go as far as you want to for the sake of wanting to be knowledgeable. So even though if you're a kid who actually your reading level is beyond your classmates, you will still stay with your class, but they will give you books for the next class and the following class. You can go as far as you want to. It's allowed. Or if you need more time to understand this science concept or this math concept or this history concept, that's fine. We will hold space for you to do that, even if your classmates have already gone to the next chapter. And the goal for the kid was not to get a star or an award or just to pass the test. It was you yourself, you as the kid, as the individual, should take responsibility for your knowledge or what you seek out of knowledge. And I do think for me, the combination of those two things in my background is where that is my mindset when I went into, I'm going to continue seeking knowledge and I will continue doing education after high school. And so the point of the degrees is, yes, of course, once you have it, it's a moot point. It never comes up in conversation. There is no question whether or not you're qualified because you already have a degree, regardless of what's it in. That is still a criteria that in people's minds that they will never question whether or not you can do stuff. I would say that the way you think coming out of high school is very different than the way you think coming out of college, or if you go and continue and pick up other degrees. The level of problem solving, being able to deal with other people, being able to take a project from beginning to end, those sorts of things without any hand holding, those sorts of things you don't really get in high school. It's more of the bell rings, you sit in a class, the bell rings again, you sit in another class. You're not doing a whole lot of intellectual stimulation thinking like you hopefully should be doing if you did go ahead and get the degree. So the degree
unless you have
is
like
not
a college prep type high school.
Okay.
That'll be the only
so the degree is not so much that is the automatic switch on for the job. The degree is, this is something you're getting for yourself that nobody can take away from you. Your job can be taken away from you at any point in time. The knowledge you picked up, that degree, that piece of paper will never be taken away from you. It doesn't matter how long it's been since you got it. It doesn't matter how many different jobs you got after it. That is something that you can always stand on business when you pick up.
Business.
There you go.
Business. When
you pick up that degree or certificate or whatever it is. The next layer to that, I think, is the fact that the job market that we're in now, it's like, on the one hand, there are so many new types of jobs that have been created now. And then on the other hand, there is regular jobs that I think were forgotten. So let's start with the forgotten ones. Okay.
Forgotten.
So, and this is going to be a US reference, but when it comes to jobs like factory worker, handyman, plumber, mechanic, electrician, post office, cashier of any kind, or carpenter, or any of the we call them vocational
service, I guess, vocational
or service sector. There was a time, historically speaking, where those are the respectable jobs that that's their focus to get to. And those jobs were able, in that time of the economy, you can pay your mortgage, you can have a family, they will eat properly without being on food stamps, you can get them through school, all of that good stuff. Now, of course, economies change, and if the salaries don't, that starts to cause an issue. I don't know if this is called blue collar, white collar, green collar. I forget which collar this sector is in, but because it also includes like bus drivers or equipment, the people who deal with the equipments and things like that. Now, when you take note, I think this started maybe back in the 80s, where we had this shift, which I don't know if this is only Hollywood doing this, but had this shift of everybody wants to be in an office, clickety-clack in an office, Wall Street, working girl, all those different shows. We're having the suits with the big shoulder pads, and the whole lifestyle of commuting to work, being in the office and leaving work and go back again. And that's what everybody wants to do. And then there started being this like status difference of like, if you work in an office, that means your status is like superior to the bus driver or the janitor or the post office person or the handyman or the factory, the assembly line factory worker, that kind of thing. And I'm not sure, maybe I should have looked at the data. I'm not sure if what's possible also the pay might have been different or not. And that's where that status thing came from. I don't know. But so then when we fast forward to now, take note, at least in the US, a lot of these types of jobs, like the assembly line factory worker, the bus driver, the carpenter, the plumber, the electrician, a lot of these jobs have a really large vacancy because there's been generations who weren't going for those jobs anymore because, well, if you're going to college, the route you're getting into is to be in an office on the 13th, 14th floor. That's it. Which means we have this other sector of service who are aging out and newer generations are not taking their place. And so I found it fascinating that now people are starting to recognize that and noting that actually the perks that these jobs get, when you look at, okay, the older folks who are now gradually, they will stay until retirement and then, opt out. They get benefits. Like they're not homeless afterwards. Like they are set up in a way where their retirement and everything, even though technically they were working for the government or the service provider type thing, but they actually are taken care of in a way so that they could possibly remain comfortable if they play their cards right, which may not be the case if you were working on Wall Street.
Oh, yeah.
Just saying. So taking note that if you are in this realm of you're looking for a job, you're thinking about what kind of education do you need or not. One layer to that when it comes to jobs is that, the service sector or the vocational sector is a respectable industry as well. And you can still be innovative with a degree in that industry as well. It should not be forgotten just because you won't be behind a screen all day. You don't need to be behind a screen all day, okay? You can use your hands too for some things as well and still get paid for it just fine. Now, another layer to that is the other side, where about these new jobs. And I think that is where what we already noted, where sometimes there'll be a disconnect of not knowing that this was available. So jobs like you're the supervisor to know what the keyboards of all computers should look like, or the manager to know the compliance, like supervising on the compliance for certain products. There's different types of jobs that you wouldn't even know that was a thing unless you did some really rabbit hole Alice in Wonderland digging to find it, because it's not listed automatically. And so I think in that realm, that also shows that the degree you decide to get does not limit you or chain you to one thing. And I think that's what our generations have done more of like, you can expand as far as you want to, regardless of what degree you had, because hopefully when you were getting it, you understood the assignment, that this was about gaining knowledge and problem solving skills and connections. It wasn't just to memorize stuff and then only do that one subject for the rest of your life. Right? The degree was supposed to be a tool that actually enhances you as a person so that you are even more qualified or viable or valuable or reliable in whatever sector you end up being in. So it should be, I get it, the frustration, because it's like the longer it takes for that connection to happen for the job, the more frustrating it is of like, so how are these bills going to get paid if the job hasn't connected yet, right?
Yeah.
And on top of that, unfortunately, the rhetoric that's online now to try and help people, because there are so many coaches to get you a job. There are so many matchmakers claiming they'll get you a job, or there's so many people giving all kinds of different tips about how to navigate that. And unfortunately, some are not as honest with how it would be lovely if all of this was really just based on merit. That, you have the degree, so the door is open, it's fine. But unfortunately, it's a game. There's a lot of class system involved. There's a lot of networking that only certain people have. So like if your networking doesn't work, if you weren't born in a family who's already networked, circled in to get you the job. if you are the first in your family to have a degree, what networking is supposed to get you in that position compared to your classmate whose parents are donors to the campus because their uncle founded the bank and those sorts of things, right? So it's a different reality that unfortunately just having a degree may not is not the be all end all. That's why you need to be more smart and strategic beyond whether or not just this one degree can get you the job. It's more about, yes, there are so many jobs out there. The key is connecting them. Employers don't know that you exist, and you don't know that that employer exists. So to be honest, there's a void here. I don't know why y'all have not figured out Indeed.com, all these things. It should be a matchmaker situation happening, not just a endless list of postings going nowhere, because that's not helping this gap where you're not connecting to the right employer or the right employee for what you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And to talk back about that, yeah, they don't know you exist. And then also, and because when I think about myself, yes, I had, obviously parents who valued education, and I had some good teachers and counselors and but I didn't have like a mentor. Like some people have like a real mentor at the school who's, or someone else that they know that really knows their stuff or is in the business you want to be in, and they can really mentor you and where to go. I didn't really have that. So a lot of it was just kind of like, my figuring it out on my own or with my parents, or like, and sometimes like there might have been like if I had a mentor or someone who was in the job I wanted to be in, maybe they would have had obviously more information about where I'm supposed to go. Right. But for me, it was kind of just, you just tried everything. Like you went to the career services place. I would talk to my college counselor, but she didn't really, not really she wasn't really I wouldn't say a mentor to me kind of thing. It was just kind of like, well, just make sure you finish all of these credits and then you can graduate, like, kind of thing. I did the networking events also, and I've had the situation where a job is explained a certain way, and then when you go to interview, it's not what they said it was. Really, it's kind of shady. You know what I mean? I'm sure some people are aware, have been through that, where it's not really what you think, or they say something they want and then it's not. And then of course and then, as I said before, the added thing of how sometimes the person that's your manager is not really like you kind of don't know how they got that position, right? And then to add to the other gaps is that the changing of types of jobs, like the same way that we switched from like blue collar jobs like electrician, police officer, and now we're into, oh, you want an office job. Now it's morphed again, where, you know what, we don't want the office job anymore. We want to be able to be more flexible. We want to have a 4-day work week and then 3-day weekend. We want to have time for other things. We don't want to have such a regimented 9-to-5 type deal, right? We want to have, people want more freedom. People want to be more like, entrepreneurs or influencers or have some kind of business where you can have more control over the type of hours you work, kind of thing. And so that's another shift, right? And obviously, if schools have not caught up to that, right? I feel like we're still kind of, I don't know if we have a school where it's like, it's all about, you go to the school if you don't want a 9-to-5. You go to the school if you want to be an entrepreneur. You go to the school if you want to create your own type of job, which seems to be happening more, where people are creating their own type of job that didn't exist 10 years ago. And, and then figuring out the way you have to deal with it so you can also obviously pay the bills, right? Or people do traveling. So like, there's some people I follow on Instagram where their jobs are, I don't even know how I don't even know what their job is. I just know they do something with digital marketing, or I don't know what, but they're traveling all over the place. Granted, there are ways to travel in a cheaper way. Like there's hostels, there's things you can do, but they're traveling all over the world. And I'm over here like, how are they paying their bills? Like, you know what I mean? They're all over the world doing all of these like great big things, jumping off this mountain, climbing this mountain under the water. Where are you? Like, you know what I mean? Just all this stuff. And then you see all these endorsements on their Instagram and all this stuff. I'm just like, what is this, right? And then we have the Amazon is a thing, which before, I know you couldn't use Amazon to make money. years ago. Like it was just, you just buy yourself and go. Now it's like, oh, if you do this thing on Amazon, you can get paid. Or if you use Audibles, then you get paid all this money. And it's all these things online about all these different ways you can make money in your sleep. That's the thing. Make money in your sleep where you don't have to go, and there's more online jobs, right? And things like that. So that also adds another layer of like, how can schools help us more to find any job that we can possibly have, kind of thing. But I would also note that having a college degree would also help you with creating a new job, right? In terms of like how you're thinking about it in critical ways, you're, piecing things together and stuff like that. So I think it's just it's like the job industry shifts more than the like education, I guess, like in some ways, like the jobs are going, and I suppose it makes sense because for jobs, it's, you will have a job normally you would have a job longer than you would be in school for the most part, unless you continue school until 100 years old. But for the most part, you do school for 10, 20, 30 years, and then the whole rest of your life is just a job, right? And before, you would keep the same job. The job you got at 20, you have until 100. Nowadays, that's not how it is. Nowadays, people are switching jobs all the time. We're kind of like, the moment we're not liking this, we're out. Next job, let's go. Boom, 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 kind of thing. And I suppose the education sector or universities kind of have to meld them, change themselves up a bit. Like there have been some changes, but not in like, not in the way that the jobs are. Granted, the same old jobs are still available that we had before, but not like they're gone. But it's just, we want other things now. We want like more of something else. And yeah, so I feel like, I suppose everyone, I mean, pointing fingers, I don't think is a thing, but everyone has some form of accountability, I think, where we could all work together to be like, okay, I need this, I need that. And what do you need? What do you want, kind of thing? And like, how can the education help you get that? How can the student help you? How can the parents help you? How can the job help you? And, kind of thing. Because as we speak, more jobs are being made. I'm sure in 10 years' time, there'll be even more jobs that weren't made before, and then other jobs that are no longer, So, yeah, and obviously prices are going up and things are really expensive. So there's that thought of like the usual job that was supposed to be able to help me pay my bills. Now it's not so much, right? So it's a very, it's an interesting thing to poke at, and I'm not sure how we'll, we still have to figure out how we're supposed to do that so that everyone can get all the knowledge that you need, but also get the job that you need as well. Yeah. So
yes.
That's what I'll say.
So then to bring it all in.
You didn't say wrap up. We need to say wrap up, ma'am.
Oh, wow. To bring it all in.
The point is, college degree is important, okay?
Indeed.
It's valuable, all right?
Indeed. It sounds like there is a lot of room for effective and positive, substantial contribution on both the education sector and the job workforce sector. When it comes to this gap where we have graduates not being where they want to be, and employers apparently, allegedly, supposedly not knowing who to hire. Okay. And within that, we do need to hold space for the fact that generationally, we really need to be serious about education policies that we put into place.
Yes.
We definitely need to respect teachers a whole lot more. Because
definitely.
The ripple effect that happens later, 20 years later, when your population can't read because you chose not to pay teachers, don't be complaining when that happens, right? So to be honest, you need to pay teachers more. All of their school supplies should be free for them. Just saying, just to start, you know what I'm saying? You don't have to change the world immediately, but just start there, right? And then with employers, this notion of only promoting the person who doesn't have a backbone, or the person who doesn't have all the skill set, or the person who doesn't have all the education, and giving, and
my cousin. No, just kidding.
Promoting that, and then those who are qualified and educated and actually want to do a good job are constantly frustrated in entry-level mode is, again, a cycle that's not serving you because then all of those qualified people are the ones who are pivoting to, they're going to just try and create their own thing.
Passion project.
Yeah, they're going to do their passion project.
Amazon.
Exactly. Go to do their passion project. Go passively sell stuff from Amazon, and that's it. Because
influencer, become an influencer.
What's the point of anything else? Or they might do actual community stuff. I feel like it's not fair to claim like we're only out here doing posting. I'm flying out of a helicopter. They're actually also the ones who are creating real community initiatives and things like that. But the main point is the employers lose out on quality, because a lot of your quality is choosing to pivot in that way because they're not being served really in the job force, or they're not being connected to the right opportunity in the job force. So on both sides, there's a lot of room that I hope possibly this conversation has inspired you with a solution in you listening, for that room, for all those voids to be filled. Because it just seems like we can't, allowing that to continue is just going to cause a deeper issue down the line, because if we continue like this, I don't really know, what is Generation Alpha going to be doing after they graduate? Wait a minute, are they even going to graduate? Like, what would be the point of graduating if we continue like this? I'm just saying, are they all going to be into crypto, making crypto in their sleep? Is that what, is that the plan for them? I'm then like, what's the point of even finishing high school if that's the plan for them, So those sorts, we need to be thinking about that, because all over the world, you don't want your generations to kind of, it causes a bit of regressing, unfortunately. And that should be, of course, just connecting dots here. But if you allow your population to regress like that, it makes it even easier to oppress them. Yes? And we don't really want that, do we? If they don't read, if they don't have any critical thinking skills, how exactly are they going to push back or question really weird instructions? I'm just saying.
Like us millennials, okay?
I'm just saying, we're trying to set you up for success, future generations, okay? So please, I know, I get it. You really feel like getting education or a degree doesn't mean anything because these other people online are claiming they went through all the trials and tribulations of going to school and they're still sitting in their mama's house. You know what? At least, but they can problem solve and they can read, and eventually they will get out of their mama's house. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So please don't allow that to make you feel like you should just and just don't do that, because those are skills that
no one can take from you.
No one can take from you, and you will definitely need when it comes to pushing back on being exploited. People exploit you.
I like that.
Unfortunately, regardless if we already noted how, your boss possibly knows less than you. Unfortunately, the amount of exploitation and abuse happens when people know you didn't finish your education, or you're a different age, or you came from something else, is really useless. Use it against you. Yes, they use it against you, which is highly disrespectful, because I don't think a college degree necessarily defines your IQ, but it does define.
Yeah, there's a lot of dumb people that have.
I'm telling you, it doesn't mean you're smart just because you have a degree. Okay, I know we're bringing it all in, but this all connects. We promise. But don't this is to set you up for success so that you are not exploited. That's the biggest thing. And you can't push back on that if you don't have the criteria that they can't take away from you. They can take a title away from you. They can't take your education from you.
Yeah, so you take a job away from you, but they can't take your...
They can't take your values from you, your integrity, your education. They can't take that from you. So I feel like we're missing the point if you think just because somebody online or someone in your family who is an older generation is claiming, is out of frustration. They're really venting because it's out of frustration, because they're in a rut right now, right? So because the employment sector all over the world is going through it. It's been going through it for the past 4 years. So it's not just because of a degree. It's because the world has been going through it.
And it's literally on fire, but it's fine. It's
fine. So don't allow their frustration to divert or derail your trajectory. So you deserve all of the education, all the knowledge, all of the opportunities of abundance. You deserve that. Don't cut yourself short just because at this moment in time, people are trying to make it seem like going to college doesn't mean anything or getting a degree doesn't mean anything because the job sector is useless. Don't do that to yourself, please. If you have the access and the resources, take it. You will not regret it, regardless if it's 1 year, 2 year, 4 years. Take it and just put it in your pocket. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do.
Pocket. Jobs can come and go, but the value of education will not.
Yes.
Come and go.
So please remember that. Remember that. Please hold space for all the smart people's passion projects. Okay.
Yes.
They're valuable too.
Bless
right.
All
they're working through it. They're working through it too. Okay.
We'll get there.
Yes.
All right.
And then for employers, because we already spoke of the education system, get your act together. Employers, you need to get your act together as well. This deal of insisting on wanting to, I know it's not all of y'all, all right? I'm sure you listening don't do this, but your comrades do. This deal of insisting on creating employment spaces that are abusive and underpaying and underprivileged and under everything, always trying to squeeze people out of everything. And it's always a complaint if the person wants to be treated as a human. Like, get over it. Get over it, please. We can do so much better. Okay. I understand employers, y'all need to look out for yourselves too, because people will slip and fall in your office and sue you because even though you had nothing to do with it, I get it. I understand. You got your own priorities you need to protect. I understand. But like, you do need to meet your employees or future graduates. You need to meet them halfway too, because that is your employment pool. I don't know where else you're going to get it from, because can all of you afford robots in your office? No. If you could, we wouldn't even having this conversation, because then you don't need everybody else. But since you do, try to figure out how you can work with either the education system, maybe create paid internships that actually teach somebody something instead of exploiting interns for free, as you've been doing too long, please. And take your training modules seriously. It should not be just coffee breaks. Really take, like, when your employees come in, there needs to be some serious training happening. It doesn't mean a whole lot of hand holding, but like we can do better. And I just feel like if all of your employees can't wait to clock out because they're always looking for another job on your time, like, what does that mean?
That's a problem. Like, let's get it together.
What's the common denominator? We got to work on that. And it's not just about raising the salary, because people still be mad and depressed or like not happy with their job, even if there was a promotion or a raise. So we need to get better on like, what work culture are we dealing with that people feel like they're already dead every time they clock into your office. That's not okay.
Oh my God.
So we gotta meet halfway with that to get out.
Personal experience of that. Feeling like you're dead when you walk into the office.
Exactly. Gotta meet people halfway. Because as an employer, I get it. You want your employees to be like vibrant, doing everything, delivering even more within the time they're clocking in and clocking out. But they're not machines. And you can't expect that if you're going to disrespect them the entire time or just make them feel like this is your replaceable.
Not it.
It's not it. If you die today, we will get somebody new tomorrow. It doesn't matter. Keep it moving. Like if they're
also, even if you are replaceable, you should still treat people nice. Okay. All right.
So there needs to be revamped, similar to the education system, the whole workforce system. We can't continue doing it as if we're in Stepford Housewives vibes or 1950s vibes. Like it's not, or Wolf on Wall Street vibes. Like that's, I feel like we've been needing an upgrade for a while. And the more you end up kind of losing good people because you're not upgrading the workforce. So
that's it. We need an upgrade. Yes.
Yes. So then your workforce ends up being people who like, well, they won't necessarily take the risk to do their own job. So they'll just rather clock in, pretend to be dead for 8 hours and then clock out.
Okay, Dagny.
I'm just kidding. Pick up my check.
Dead.
Go.
Just
pick up my check
and
go.
9 to 5. I'm out. Don't bother. Don't talk to me.
Yep.
I don't want to be here, but I have to pay the bills.
Gotta pay the bills.
Come on.
And I think we deserve more than that. And I think we need an upgrade on that. I get it. Some people love their jobs and they love their boss. That's great. Yeah. Obviously, this message maybe is not for you if that's your situation. Okay.
Yeah.
But it would be great if that could be. We can get that to be the majority.
Yes.
The majority of employers feel satisfied and a majority of employees feel satisfied. And I believe we can get there. I believe we can. Sure. So I hope
makes sense. Yeah.
You enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, let us know what you think. Let us know what your thoughts, anything that we brought up enticed your imagination or stood out to you, please share with us so we can continue the conversation. Is there anything other aspect of this topic you'd like to hear our insight on? Let us know. And we could include it in our next, in a later episode. So thank you again for listening. Really appreciate you. And we'll catch you on the next episode.
Yeah. Stay blessed and stay learning. And good luck. Bye.
Take care. Bye.